Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone. I am calling the Thursday, February 20th, 2025 meeting of the Finance Administration Committee to order. It is 6:02 and I'm Jim Spear, I'm the chair. Mike Salmonson is attending remotely. Mike Gardini is here and Borough Manager Dobbs is here. So let's start off with the approval of the January minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes for January 16th, 2025.
I will second.
Excellent. Anybody have comments on the January minutes? Mike, you all right?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor? Mike, you have to say aye because we can't see you.
Okay. Aye.
Aye, good. Okay. January minutes are approved. Treasurer's report. Over to Ms. Dobbs.
Sorry, stand by.
Yeah.
Do we want to take items out of order since she's working on the AV items?
Oh, no, that's okay. I have it up.
Okay.
All right. Trying to do too many things at once.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so it being the first, we're just looking at the January numbers. Nothing too crazy here. So all of our real estate taxes have gone out. Those were all mailed out, so we are starting to see those come in. The bulk of those, I was told, will be showing up in March. So we'll see those in April is when the bulk of those will be submitted in. Otherwise, and I guess I should ask, do you have any preferences for what I should be highlighting in these reports?
No, it's usually if there's something unusual or odd or something we didn't anticipate, generally is what we're looking for.
Yeah, I'd like to see, like, if there's some, like if we're going through a budget unusually quickly, sometimes it's not apparent from the, this, like, like if 70% of the budget is spent in the first 2 months, I would kind of like to know if that's normal, or, or if we're, in danger of.
So I will point out one thing. We did already make this correction. It's not reflected in this. If you look under fees and fines, subdivision land development, it shows that we've collected $5,300 worth of revenue. That actually, so the $5,000 is actually an escrow that we collected. So I am working with the bank. This was something that Matt had started to set up an actual escrow account in our banking system, and then in the accounting system that has been reallocated to a different account number that's specifically for developer escrows, which they're essentially like a pass-through account. So we just draw down on that escrow as invoices come in for that project. So you'll see that it looks like we collected the $5,300 of fees for land development plans. $5,000 of that $5,300 is an escrow. The $300 is the actual application fee. So that will be corrected in the next month's bill, our treasury report. And like I said, moving forward, we're going to be setting up that escrow account so that when we do have land developments coming in, not just the initial escrow, but then all of the financial developer agreements that we get, instead of doing letters of credit, we're seeking to set up an escrow account specifically, which will be cash escrow, which again we'll draw down on as we proceed through the development process itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that $5,000 will be, it'll be on a different line?
It'll be on a different line item,
Yeah.
yeah. Otherwise, everything else should look pretty normal. Nothing else jumps out at me at this time, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
The only thing that I noticed was that we don't have any rental revenue from 201 Sabine. And I didn't know whether, I would have thought we would have gotten paid for January.
Okay.
That would have shown up here.
Okay. That's a good question. I will have to follow up on that and get back to you.
Okay.
Maybe they don't pay monthly or something like that, or, maybe.
Yeah, I just, for obvious reasons, I look at 201 Sabine. So I was like, huh, that's sort of funny.
Yeah,
Oh, they'll pay.
I will follow up on that one.
Yeah. It may also be, a lot of companies will prepay their rent for tax savings. So, like, we were always advised by our accountant to, prepay your rent in December for January of next year, because you can take it on your
All right, we don't need to.
a deduction as your tax return from the previous year.
We don't need to speculate though.
Right,
we'll get
right,
that
right.
answered. All right, any other questions on this?
Nope.
For now?
Oh, I'm sorry, the only
Yeah.
other thing I will point out is we are kind of going through because we've had more snowstorms this year than we have in the past, our public works overtime is getting up there, and I think it was at 40%.
Yep.
So luckily we didn't get the snow today that was predicted, but just to point that out, because we've had more snow events, we have
Yep.
dipped into that overtime a little bit more heavily the past 6 weeks than we did in previous years.
Yeah,
Gotcha. That's good to know.
great. Okay. Let's move on. We have no presentation items. Schedule of bills.
I'll move to recommend schedule of bills for the general sewer, solid waste, capital highway, and green funds totaling $199,603.41.
I will second.
Okay. Questions on the schedule of bills? Well, anybody?
No?
All right, all in favor of approving to recommend the scheduled bills?
Aye.
Aye, yeah. We can see you now, Mike, so you can.
Okay. Oh, okay.
All right. Escrow release number 3 for 100 Forest Ave.
I'll move to recommend approving escrow release number 3 for 100 Forest Ave.
I will second.
Okay.
All right, so the update for this one is the escrow release that was requested is being recommended in full, other than the line item for the sidewalks, and that's related to the damage that was found to the underlayment of the sidewalk by our Public Works when they went to install the parking meters. So we have notified the developer of the need to remediate that. We are withholding that from the escrow release, so that was originally requested. That is not being included then in this escrow release, but the understanding is that this escrow release will help to relieve some liquid assets on his end, so that we can get reimbursed for some of the other professional services that we're waiting on payment for the invoices. So we do recommend that this escrow release be released, so that we can then work with the developer on some of those invoice payments that we are waiting to receive.
Sound good?
Aye.
Very good. All in favor of that? Mike, you in favor? Great. Super.
Yes.
It's released. Well,
It's recommended.
Recommend it. Yep.
Okay. Escrow release number 2 for 650 Montgomery Ave.
Move to recommend escrow release number 2 for 650 Montgomery Ave.
I will second.
All right, so 650 Montgomery Avenue, this one is a little bit more straightforward. We are recommending, or I guess Pinoti is recommending release of the full escrow request. They are progressing nicely with their final punch list items. There are still a few outstanding items that are remaining, which primarily relate to some final landscaping, which will have to wait until the early spring. We did receive a letter from the bank holding their letter of credit that will expire in April, which is right around the time that we're hoping that they're going to complete everything and can close out the project in full. However, if there are outstanding items, because if the weather doesn't cooperate with regards to the landscape and all of those things, then they have been made aware that they will need to either secure another letter of credit put up a cash escrow or secure a bond. So they're aware that they will need to cover any outstanding financial securities if the letter of credit that they have currently runs out prior to them closing out the project. So we will either close out that project before that letter of credit expires, or they'll get alternative security funding in place. Either way, we are all set with this particular escrow release and everything is going well. As a side note, I passed along the invitation, but there will be a ribbon cutting ceremony for one of the businesses at that property on March 1st at noon.
How many of the commercial tenants have certificates of occupancy?
I believe the only one operating right now is Citizens Bank.
Okay.
And I don't believe that any of the other ones have completed their fit outs.
Okay.
But I can follow up with Kevin Walsh to find out.
Yeah, you don't have to have, just if, it was just something if you knew off the top of your head, which is.
No, I don't. I mean, obviously Citizens is operating.
Yeah.
But every time I've been to the bank, the other ones are still under construction for their fit outs. But I believe the daycare is nearing completion, and then the one that's opening in March is the veterinary office.
Do we know if any residential, or is one living there yet, or are they?
I believe one unit is leased out, but I don't know.
Oh, so they have COs for all the residential?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I believe so.
Cool.
All right, very good. So all in favor of that release? That is, all right, approved. Okay, let's move to discussion items. Rules of council.
Yeah, it's basically the same
Yeah.
status. There are some updates that I need to do based off of some recommendations from Walco. They're non-substantive, they're more about, and Mike will appreciate this as a lawyer, it's more about capitalizing certain things when it's referring to a specific thing throughout.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
It's that type of kind of-
Define terms.
Yes, exactly. It's more of things that are for clarity. Because we were gonna sync that up with the public comment rules, and I knew that those kind of weren't ready yet, I prioritized my time towards things that were kind of more immediate. So
Sure.
that's on me as to why it hasn't come back, but that's the reason why I hadn't kind of done that update yet.
Yep, okay, so nothing for us to review today. Boards and commissions review. Mike, any update on Human Relations Commission? Probably.
No, because I wasn't sure that I was going to make this meeting, I asked Maggie to put it on the agenda for next meeting with my proposed revisions.
Okay.
It's just two, but.
Okay.
But yeah, so it will be there. I was pretty sure I wasn't going to make this meeting, so, but I was able to get
Okay,
it
great.
on.
That'll be next month.
Yep.
Shade Tree Commission, so we're just trying to get our teeth into this Shade Tree Commission thing. And I think probably what we have to do is define, or we have to figure out what we want to move forward about Shade Tree and, in what categories. I think it's probably two broad categories. One is Shade Tree's role in land development approvals, because we have a landscape architect now, and those roles should be better defined, I think. And also their role in zoning hearing board rulings. And then the other is, what is Shade Tree Commission's actual purview over the trees? What's their, authority over the trees? Where, in what areas can they demand that a tree be planted, such as, downtown? Obviously, we require shade tree plantings downtown. But to date, we don't make residences plant trees other than as a result of land development. So we might want to talk about whether we want them to. When they come in here to talk to us, we might ask them what their appetite for that kind of thing is. Explore that bit. I don't know. How do you guys feel about that?
Which part?
About So Shade Tree Commission has planted hundreds of trees in the last 9 or 10 years under their current program. It's all been voluntary. You know, people opt their own yard in. There may be some places in the borough, like on the Verge, that we might, want to give Shade Tree Commission some authority to initiate a planting that hasn't been volunteered. Let's put it that way. Maybe, maybe something like an opt-out plan, or I don't know, just putting it out there.
Like Verge is in the portion of the Verge that's in the right of way.
Right, the strip of land that's on the other side of the street side of the sidewalk, which is in the right of way.
Gotcha.
I mean, I guess I would want to hear from them whether they want that.
Yeah.
Like, do they think that's a useful thing to have?
Yeah.
Do they think that we need more of it, across the borough? Because I have somewhat mixed feelings about, even though it's on the other side of the sidewalk, we do then expect the landowner to be responsible for the sidewalk. So when they're, over time, if there's encroachment of the roots and things like that, and I know that they are trying to be careful not to come up with or to do the plantings in such a way that there wouldn't be disruption of the sidewalk, but you are potentially creating a burden on the landowner by involuntarily planting a tree.
True. So we already do require a form for existing trees, take down an existing tree.
Mm-hmm.
The way the form is phrased right now, it covers the entire right of way. But we don't allow people to take down trees in the right of way without a form, without an approved
Right.
form.
Okay.
So this is kind of in that same area, I think.
Right.
Yeah, I think I'd be interested in hearing from them if that's something they're interested in.
Yeah.
Because I think if it's not, then I need to
Yeah.
hoist it on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Should we be coming up with some other questions, like prior to actually digging into the ordinance for Shade Tree?
Well, I think you and I had talked about some of the questions that you had, so
Yeah.
some of them might just be resolved by reviewing the ordinance, which I haven't taken a deep dive into. We had also discussed, there's a larger initiative that I have kind of on my nearby to-do list, which is to come up with a more cohesive checklist for subdivision-like developments. When things get triggered, at what stage, who's responsible for reviewing, who's responsible for sending that to the person who's supposed to be responsible for reviewing it.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a broader structural organization that I'm looking to just review what we have on the books and come up with a plain language checklist that we can all understand and follow. So some of the questions might be resolved just by going through that, at least in terms of the who's reviewing what when.
Yeah.
In terms of the questions about what authority does the Shade Tree Commission have, that would just be through a review of the actual ordinance itself. So if that's something that you want to take some time to read over the next couple of weeks and we can talk about it, offline and come up with a game plan for discussion. If you want to send a list of questions, we can kind of try to identify that just through an ordinance review. So I can, reference, have Kevin take a look at it, since he would know some of the ordinance requirements as well. I can read it, familiarize myself, and be able to help interpret that, what it says.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you want to come up then with that list as a first step, we can go through the ordinance. Like I said, the checklist that I'm looking at doing is not something that I'm going to be able to get done in the next month. That won't really happen until after we onboard our new assistant manager. This is actually something that will be one of the first tasks that I will have them do, just so that they can read our ordinance and get familiar with what we require, since they're going to be primarily responsible for organizing the application review process from the administrative side. So I do hope to have that in the near future, but that's not something that will be present before you until, I'm guessing, April at the very earliest, but
Okay.
more likely May.
All right, we got time,
Makes sense.
no problem.
Okay.
So maybe we should mostly put this on hold then, before some of those other things.
Yeah, again, we can do some of the ordinance review in the
Yeah.
near term, but some of the other things, kind of the more structural organization, I think will be fleshed out and will be made more clear once we have that policy document drafted in the April-May timeframe.
Great,
There,
okay.
there are, I guess there's like, we know that there's one piece, right, that's different from the organizational piece at least, right? Which is the question as to whether, since we now have a landscape architect on staff, whether that review, which is in code as being the commission, could just be handled by, which would involve, that would involve actually amending the code to get to that point.
Mhm.
But it's separate from a procedural thing, right? Because we would actually be changing the procedure.
Yeah.
So not that we have to discuss that now, we can put all of that back, but I just wanted to flag that as if we need, if you felt that you wanted to discuss some actual things that would involve, that would require a change, that would be one.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Other commissions, we don't have any others at the moment. Communications plan, public comment guidelines. So I have a new draft that you probably all have seen. It's in the packet here too.
Yep.
And let me just get there.
There was one edit that, and I wish I had mentioned this before, but when I was looking at it again on the train ride down here, we changed in number 1, we said, we took out individuals must state their name or address or block number for the record prior to making the comment. Now we say individuals will be requested to state their name and address. I assume we still expect them to state either their name and address or block number.
Uh-huh.
Now it sounds like, well, we're making a request. You can ignore it if you want. I think,
Now it's too soft, you're saying?
I
Yeah,
think that's, I think
yeah.
it's fine, because I think most folks will do that. I think
Yeah.
that it's like, who are the rules speaking to the rules? I mean, it's setting expectations for everyone, right? But I think the idea was that if someone feels strongly that they didn't want to, share their block or address, that we
Okay.
probably weren't gonna.
but I think they have to state their name
Right.
regardless.
Yeah,
So right now it's read as individuals will be requested to state their name and address. So it's got to be individuals must identify themselves and will be requested to state their name and address.
right. That makes sense.
Or something like it's just got to be if we're not going to require them. I thought we had decided that they didn't want to give their exact address. That was fine, but we would still ask them to
Yeah.
provide at least the block so that we
Yeah.
know that they're a resident of Narberth.
Right, and just get a general idea, because often their concern is relative to where they live.
Well, then
Right.
you could just do, you could turn it back into a must, and then it gets resolved by putting or block. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So you'd like them to identify themselves, how would they identify themselves without giving their name, though?
They'll state their name.
No, I think they will. So I think Mike's saying take it back to individuals must state their name and address or
Must.
block
We'll
number.
go back, okay, all right.
Yeah.
But
For the
since
record.
we now, I guess, have or block, it just, that's your, if you feel uncomfortable, you
All
can
right.
do a more generalized thing.
Okay. Next paragraph is entirely new, it's still under 1 here. I realized we didn't mention anything about remote public comment, which is kind of important, I think. And the intent of this paragraph was to mirror
Yep.
the attitude of remote attendance of council people or people attending online, which is, the attitude is that, video's extra. If it's not functioning or if it's insufficient, the meeting goes on without you, pretty much. It's
Yep.
not, you use remote comment at your own risk.
Yep.
Okay. What else do we have here that we want to talk about?
We
Number
talked the rest
6,
of it.
meeting chair's discretion. I wasn't quite sure how to say that, but I think we want to say that the meeting chair has the authority to structure public comment however they feel is right at the time, if they want to give everybody 1 minute, if they want to give everybody 11 minutes, I think that's up to the chair. Does that sound right? For the chair to have a final ruling?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. I just thought we should throw that in to make it clear because, circumstances come up all the time.
Right.
It's the chair who's really responsible.
Yeah.
Okay. What else do we have here? Number 8, that's the one that's been in here for a long time. I lifted it directly from Conshohocken. I think it still makes sense, I don't know.
Public answers.
Yeah.
That's specific to questions that are raised from.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's happens all the time. People want to use,
Yeah.
form their comment in the form of a question. Then it's not always the best place and time to get an answer,
Yeah.
but still,
Yep.
they do it.
Yep. It's not like Maggie has every potential piece of information ever related to the borough in any tangential way at her fingertips, nor would we expect her to. So, or us for that matter, but particularly for them. No games of gotcha.
What does number 9 mean on record?
Administrative staff will ensure that public comment is taken on record for council. I think that's,
Meeting minutes.
yeah.
We do, I guess, or we do currently note that, right?
Yeah, it shows up in the meeting minutes.
I just want to make sure that we're not putting something in here that presents like a burden and some other burden in terms of.
What else here?
Do we want to say administrative staff will try to ensure that public comment is taken?
No, they should.
No, we legally.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so if you do nothing with your meeting minutes, the most basic thing that you actually have to capture is motions,
Right.
votes, the outcome of the votes,
Yep.
and
And public comment. Yep.
You can literally
Yep.
put nothing else in your meeting minutes, and you would still
Yep.
basically
Yep.
meet requirements, so yes, we have to.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine.
Let's see. The only other edit was number 11. What change was that? Conversation. Oh, this has to do with. I'm not sure if that's worded the most clear as it could be.
Yeah. I mean, we can reword
Yeah.
most of these. I think like turn them into active sentences and whatnot. But in terms of like the actual policies that you've outlined here, I think we've gotten this mostly. I don't think I have any additional kind of things that haven't already been addressed in one way or
Yeah.
another.
Mike, do you see anything missing? Any gaping holes in
Nope.
this? So, okay, so
Nope.
this will have to be reworded and reformatted and, all right, so we're gonna take one more draft of this probably for next month, get it in a final form. And that'll be that. Okay, very good. Moving on. AR. All right, now we're talking about AI summaries, as I like to do. So I sent around a couple more examples, summaries of our last meeting. I sent 5 different summaries.
Mhm.
And did you get a chance to look at them a little bit?
Yeah, I like the one that sort of had the headings. I don't know which number it was, but it sort of had the headings and then like 2 sentences under each.
Yeah, right, I think that's number 2. So I made these in sort of order of strength, from 1 being sort of the most mild possible summary, which is just topic headings and timestamps. Number 2, I think what you're talking about, Mike, is headings with like a 2-sentence summary. And from there on, 3, 4, and 5, they get more and more sort of newspapery, article-y, until 5 is, that is intentionally over the top. the 5.
Yeah.
Until they end with a smiley face emoji.
Okay. Yeah, so what do you think? I mean, I think we're trying to avoid judgmental voice in these summaries. Ideally, we want sort of a just the facts kind of summary without any value judgments, without any point of view apparent. 2 kind of does that. Now, where we would use these things in another matter, like, these are things that could be generated at the time the meeting videos get posted, since the transcript is available at that time too.
Yeah, I think that's the main question, right? Because I think that answers also what you're looking for in terms of format.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well, it's a possibility. I would like to, at some point, think about, like, what would we do for, like, if a council person wanted to put out their own newsletter? Like, would there be guidelines for that person as well, or just advisements for that person?
I think that like we would discuss that through the broader concept of like the communications plan, wherever we have with that.
Yeah.
I think it's good to have like a letter of, or like a set of expectations, in terms of like how everyone should, be expected to kind of like report themselves and.
Because council people also do other things like, engage in online postings and things like that.
Yeah, just it kind of covers all that spectrum of thing.
Is that something we could construct, like a sort of guideline for, how an elected official should, what kind of things they should be cautioned against?
Yes, I would recommend that you all consider guidelines for any sort of public dissemination of information that's coming from you in your capacity as a council member. So I think there's a difference between, you posting as an individual on social media or sending out a newsletter, but if you're doing so in capacity as council person, then I think that there would want to be some sort of guidelines to follow. And I know that it's done in other places. You typically see it in larger municipalities that have individual wards, where there's maybe of hyper-local interest, depending on what ward you live in.
Right, yeah.
So that's done in my township where I live. So each elected official, if they so choose, creates their own newsletter and sends out separate newsletters that's just for their ward.
Yeah.
And anybody can sign up for any ward's newsletters, but it's more specific to the hyperlocal area of the ward as opposed to the township at large. Obviously here, everyone is an at-large member and it's a much smaller geography. So, to what purpose would you like to submit individual information, or is that something that we would want to include just in our general weekly newsletter that we send out? So from a distribution standpoint, I also want to make sure that we're not inundating residents with too many separate newsletters.
Right.
Just so that everyone gets the same information, and then if they get too much information, maybe they decide to unsubscribe from the borough's newsletter. And then that means that we have less effective means of getting out relevant information.
Yeah,
So I don't want to discourage it, but I think we would need to take a look at what individual information you would like to be sending out. And if so, maybe it makes more sense just to fold that into our regular borough newsletter. I'm spitballing here, but like have a council member corner and have a rotating, if there's something that you would want to advertise, we can build that into the newsletter perhaps. So we have options.
Yeah. Okay. What if, for instance, the AI was producing summaries of meetings and that was sort of made available to the person assembling the newsletter, so the borough newsletter, they could use it or not use it or.
Again, I will just state that any sharing of something that's akin to meeting minutes prior to the official meeting minutes being adopted is generally not supported, only because it creates duplicate work for the administrative staff. Because we would then have to generate the AI meeting minutes, or you would run the AI meeting minutes, but we would need to review them and vet them, put a big caveat on them before we could disseminate them. And then we would essentially have to do the same thing all over again for the actual formal meeting minutes that we adopt.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So that's kind of the conundrum I would like to try to resolve a little bit, because you have some information that individual council people might be advised not to release on their own, but also, they're not official, they're not they're too close to meeting minutes to be officially released by the borough, So, I don't know.
Well, I think that I don't think it was don't release X, Y, or Z on your own. I think it was more of let's have a conversation as part of the communications plan as to what the guidelines are going to look like. That will answer the question as to whether it's advisable or not to do X, Y, or Z. Not, X, Y, or Z could be anything, right?
Yeah.
But I think the question is let's kind of start from the starting point of saying all right, well, what do we agree are appropriate principles to kind of guide your individual communications? And then that may answer the question as to come back to this, what's the most productive way to kind of use that asset that may help answer that question, rather than I guess starting at a different point in the.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Well,
Maybe that makes sense.
Where would we start to draw up regulations like that or advisements like that?
On which?
On all of it, what kind of information should enter a borough newsletter, regular borough newsletter, and what kind of information is available for, sort of.
Part of me wonders whether it's, if there's a high profile discussion with lots of public comment, etc., whether that's actually, we know there's high interest on this particular topic, whether it's, downtown, 201 Sabine, whatever it might be. For those of you who are unable to attend the meeting, you know, here's some more fulsome description of what went on in that meeting. Like, I don't see us, and part of this is with the communications plan is, it's like too many stop signs, people stop watching, right? So I don't want every committee to have an AI generated summary that ends up in the weekly newsletter, right? Because we're giving them so much, there's already too much in there.
Right.
Right. So to me, it's like, I see it more as a useful tool for, somebody doesn't want to show up to a meeting, or they didn't stick around for the meeting because it went for hours and hours and hours with public comment, but they want to get a sense overall of the tenor of the meeting. Like, to me, that's a productive use of it.
I certainly think it's a useful tool. I think probably the kind of next question would be like, take a stab at like, what are the, outline some principles of, what it would look like to say, here's, the set of expectations for your individual communications. And then we could just kind of discuss that, and then, if that, can continue to be reworked, however long we need to, and then that, I think that's probably gonna provide us kind of like the indicators as to what's the most productive way to kind of use, not even just this asset, but like any kind of, assets. I could be wrong, but I suspect that will kind of that will give us the guidance that we're kind of circling around right now, if that makes sense.
Okay, so what do you think should happen before the next meeting? Like, what can we work on? What can be the next example? What can be the next proposal for this, if any?
I thought that what you did with the public comment stuff was helpful, and that in terms of like looking at kind of like peer municipalities to see if they, what they had in terms of.
Yeah.
So to the extent that there's any of those, I think that'd be interesting to take a look at.
All right.
Give us good indicators.
Okay. Anything else to say about this for now? Okay.
Good.
Good talk. Cash fund and reserve policy, no update. I'm just reading here. Review of ongoing projects. I don't think we had any others that I know of. Actual public comment. Ira, you want to say anything? You're the public right now.
Well, I'll say one thing, which is that, and I'm sure you've already said this 6 times, but you never want to auto-publish something that's generated by AI.
We're not auto-publishing.
Yeah,
No.
someone has to read it.
Never.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like I said, you probably already know about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good comment though.
Okay. Is there anyone else online in attendance? No. Okay. We'll close public comment and we'll have a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second, Mike?
I will. Yeah. Second.
Okay.
Sorry.
All in favor of adjourning the meeting? The meeting
Yes.
is now adjourned at
6:46.
p.m. Thank you, everybody.